And I'd like to welcome Dan Davis once again, and he's going to talk a bit more about public fleets and public outreach efforts. So,
great.
Thank you.
Let's see here. We'll jump right in. Same picture from this morning's session. A couple different things to say about it, though. That's my RAV4 EV in Seattle. Talk about fleets. Plug-in America doesn't necessarily concentrate that much on just the commercial fleet or private fleet activities, but we do know a few things. So from some fleet activities that have taken place. One of the interesting things about these is the largest fleet of these that's running is by Southern California Edison, which operates 262 of those. And they use them for meter readers and all kinds of things, and they don't want to give them up. I was at a presentation 3 years ago by their fleet manager, and their maintenance cost per year, average per vehicle, one of these, was less than $200. And that matches my experience with this vehicle. I've had it for 4 years. Other than put windshield washer fluid in it and change the wiper blades twice, that's all I've had to do to it. So your maintenance costs, I forget who pointed it out before, absolutely plummet with these vehicles, and that's really good. I think I'm coming up on needing a set of tires. Even the brakes don't wear out very much because the regen is so great that, I mean, there's not a score, there's not a line, there's not a mark on those brakes at all when they look brand new. So your brake jobs don't even come into play. I'm going to be giving an award this weekend to a fellow individual who is just past 200,000 miles driving one of those vehicles. Anyone care to guess how far he went on his first battery pack before he had to change it? Take a guess. Yeah, how many miles?
Still using it.
155,000 miles. So when they say the batteries aren't ready, the batteries are ready. That's 15-year-old technology. Okay, there's my RAV4 ED with supplemental high motion A123 battery pack in the back. It's a school of oceanography, so here's a little picture of underwater EV. I literally tripped across that the other day looking for something else in Google. Google's an amazing thing. Shifting away from the fleet work that you guys have done, probably the earliest, or as far as I know, going back in history, some of the biggest companies in the world that are just incensed about fuel efficiency and saving money that way have been the airlines. Not only with the energy consumption and the fuel on the airliners, but the Southwest. And if you see that on that tug there that pushes that jet back away from the gate, you see the lightning bolts on there. That's an electric tug. Southwest, starting years ago, electrified all of their gates, and not just the plug that puts in the auxiliary power to the airplanes. You have to run the APU, but the ground support equipment as well. And of course, we'll call up their environment, who developed the EV1 originally, but also went on to develop a huge part of their business in building battery chargers for lead-acid batteries for forklifts and vehicles like this. Seattle also recently won a $15 million grant, Clean Cities, which is the largest amount you can get under that. And a big chunk of that is going to completely electrify all of the gates in Seattle at SeaTac Airport. All the ground support equipment, everything. This is just a picture of the Boeing 787. That's its first flight, first landing last December. I was there. I'm actually one of those people on the other side of the ramp there. This photo was taken by a hovering helicopter. And the reason I put that here is to reinforce, I think what Watson was saying earlier this morning in the session about just how efficient electric vehicles are. Because one of the things, this airplane is going to be 20% more fuel efficient than its predecessor, the 767 that's replacing. I mean, 20% more fuel efficient is just huge. I mean, it's gigantic. And that's what the airplane business does on a regular basis with every new generation of airplanes. And we need the car manufacturers and the truck manufacturers to all be that incensed. Every new vehicle should be a significant leap forward. The other thing I wanted to mention that Watson also mentioned this morning, all of the systems on board that aircraft are electric. Why? Because electric is more efficient. So when he mentioned in the Prius and all this, you have electric power steering pumps, you have electric brakes, everything becomes electric. cooling pumps, all of that. If this airplane is 19 to 20% fuel efficient, roughly 2% of those, 2% of those percentage points are because of the complete electrification of the entire airframe. There are no accessories driven off of the engine of this airplane. Everything is hydraulic function, everything are somewhere else in the airplane and driven electrically. Even the general aviation fleet is moving to all electric. That's a real airplane, 62 people. Even Cessna Aircraft has an electrification program. It's in its early stages, of course. At this last year's Oshkosh fly-in in Wisconsin, electric airplanes are a huge deal. Probably the first new fleet vehicle that's going to roll into service is going to be the Ford Transit Connect. That's a small little vehicle, but it's really going to fill a great niche. It's all electric. It's built on the C platform, same platform as the Ford Focus. Ford calls them top hats. They can put different vehicle frames basically on the same subframe. There are 7 vehicles worldwide on that same frame. I can't tell you how many small businessmen I run into that want to be able to use that in their small business. That's just a cutaway showing the RAV480 and how simple it is with the batteries completely below the cargo space. The batteries in these vehicles do not have to impinge on the cargo or passenger space in any way, shape, or form. They're very simple, as has been said before. All the electronics and that is in that silver box in the front. We call it the suitcase. Of course, there have been Ranger pickups in fleets, plug-in Priuses in fleets. I use this picture because I think it's the neatest wrap I've seen on a plug-in Prius. And I wanted the other night noticed that way in the distance there's actually a wind turbine. And I never saw that in a photo before. We also do, of course, policy work, like I mentioned before. I forgot to put the highlighting in here. I'm not going to go through the entire amount of the policy work that we did. I'm going to try and focus on a few kind of recommendations that came out of this work. So shifting gears into that for a little bit here, this is a park and ride in Redmond, Washington that went live, brand new building in April this year. And I heard about it, and I heard that they had charging stations there. I went down there on a Sunday afternoon in my RAV and took a photo. Sure enough, there are all the level 1 charging stations. And I thought, this is great. I called up my plug-in friends in California, told them all about it. I also noted a number of mistakes they made. I wanted to go back the next day to take some better pictures. This is what it's like on Monday. All of the spaces are what we call iced. They're occupied by internal combustion engine vehicles. And that's at SeaTac Airport, which also has level 1 charging available. That's my plug-in Prius there, my wife picking me up, like she will in a couple days from this trip. And all of the spaces there were iced, except for the one she was able to pull in. This is one of the problems. That sign it doesn't work. What can I say? This is what works. And it may not look as friendly, but that's the sign that's in use now as a recommendation of our program. And it's also enforceable. Someone mentioned enforcement and police. And it's designed to keep ICE vehicles out of the spaces. And notice the subtle difference. It doesn't say that it's no parking except for electric vehicle parking. It's except for electric vehicle charging. So that it sounds simple, but when we started out this project, we kind of had made that mental leap that we need to think about the purpose for certain of these spaces. And in some spaces, the purpose isn't parking; it's charging. So that might have some carryover into wherever you park your vehicles in your different fleets. They might be kind of called out and dealt with, kind of separately. This is how you can lay out use of such a sign in a public situation. This is an example of some of the material from the Puget Sound Regional Council model ordinance work that we did. There are lots of graphics like this in the report. I commend that report to you for use. The sign on the top is called a Wayfinder sign. Meets federal standards. You can put arrows on them to direct people to where things are, just like people are directed to CNG stations and that sort of thing now. Let's see, this is an example of, that was on-street parking. This is off-street parking. This one, I I threw in here to show that sometimes you deal with accessibility and ADA requirements. And so again, our recommendations are to try and locate EV charging stations as close to ADA spaces as possible. And this is the ideal, as the drawing shows as well. This is an actual station in California, in Orange County, actually, in Newport Beach, with a legacy charger, the kind of charger that can charge my RAV4EV. And you can see they're using the barrier-free, have access to the barrier-free, either van accessible or the narrower barrier-free access lane there. So that's a good example of how to do it. Here's what, this is an actual public charging station in Vacaville, California. Some people call it Voltageville, California, because their people have been behind alternative fuel vehicles, CNG, big on electric vehicles for a long time. That's a level 3 charging station. The standards question kind of came up this morning. Someone said there are no standards on level 3. They haven't even agreed to call it level 3. Trust me. The folks at SAE International, which used to be the Society of Automotive Engineers, are working on their own plan. It might also include some AC charging. So for right now, everyone in the industry is calling it DC fast charging. And this is the standard that's in the Mitsubishi i-MiEV and in the Leaf. My Leaf, which I'll take delivery on hopefully in December this year, will have a fast charge port on board because I happen to be in the Ecotality UE grant area. Otherwise, right now you can't get that charge port on your Leaf. And these, of course, are big. I put this in here while thinking about fleets. I mean, you start thinking about getting electricity into fleet vehicles, you're going to have an infrastructure problem or cost getting 480 volt 3-phase 2 stations like that, and multiple stations. I would assume if you've got lots of vehicles. There shows the connector. That's the Japanese connector. It's called Chatterwell. It was developed in concert with Tokyo Electric Power Company, also known as TEPCO. A lot of us think that the marketplace is going to overrun SAE's efforts because there'll be so many of these out here, it'll become the de facto standard. That very well may be one of those cases where with level 2, we've got the J1772, but in this case, it may be that the marketplace leads. This is Tony Posawatz, who, I don't know if the lady is here still from GM. There she is, great. That's a ride and drive of a Volt several months ago in San Francisco. He's showing the, do you call it a travel charger or convenience charger?
Level 1.
Level 1. Anyway, every one of those comes with that coiled cord set there. And we actually found at the event at my house earlier this week a problem with that, in that the amount of cord that's sticking out, a little pigtail part that plugs in there, this one's a little bit longer. But the ones that were in the vehicles that came, we plugged them into a Coulomb charge station, just like out here. We wanted to try the level 1 charging, not just the level 2. And actually what we did was pretty cool. We charged a volt on the left at level 1 and a volt on the right at level 2, both off the same charge station simultaneously. As far as I know, that's the only charging station, Coulomb, that will do that. And it did it, quite nicely. But one of the things we found was a problem is that the cord didn't stick out far enough to get into the door assembly there that you have to close to get the charging to start. So the fellow, Tim, I forget his last name, he's an engineer on your program, who was one of the former DB1 engineers, immediately took note, we're going to have to go back and try and merge into from your supplier or whatever, to leave a little more cord sticking out there on that. And the only reason I bring this up is it's just an example of the teething problems that we're going to go through. There are going to be lots of little things like that. So anyway, I'm at the end. That's a station in Europe of some sort. And they like to foil cord sets for whatever reason. And here's the reference to the Puget Sound Regional Council model ordinance work that we did. Let's see, there was one other thing I wanted to say about fleets. Training. Plug-in America years ago was approached by a couple of smaller fleets that were getting RAV4 EVs to just come out and sit around the table, have a round bag lunch or whatever, talk with the people who are going to be driving the vehicles. And some of these were like, parks, government, U.S. National parks, that kind of thing. I mean, EVs are perfect for parks. I mean, really, there's like zero footprint driving in through the trees. And what we noticed is utilization of the vehicles and lack of problems with the batteries, lack of people coming up to them and having them not charged and everything. That issue kind of goes away if you spend some time training the people who are going to be driving them. It makes a big difference. Some of these demonstration hybrids that have been around, mostly with municipalities and things, I'm sure you've got some here in the Northwest, have not had such great records in terms of, hey, how come we're not getting that 100 mile per gallon that A123 said we're going to get? And you go back and you look at the data and download it all, you find out that the fleet person came back, parked the car, and didn't plug it in. Well, you're not going to get the benefit of electrical energy if you don't have it in the battery, and you got to plug it in to do that. And the only reason I kind of bring that up is there is, we talked earlier this morning about the behavioral aspect of these vehicles. People driving fleets, and you guys with your trucks, as with the airlines, you're big enough, policy manuals and training and all this stuff and get everybody to do the right thing. But out there in smaller fleets, like maybe these little transit connects and all that, or the rounds, the people driving them, they don't own the vehicle. They're not as personally invested. I mean, you buy a Leaf, you darn well you're going to plug. You buy a Volt, for sure you're going to plug in because you only got 40 miles all electric range. And so you need to get that kind of buy-in from the people using the vehicles. And I don't know any other way to go about that except a little in-house outreach. That's all I have. Thanks.